Greetings all you in YouTube land, this is Transato10 with another action figure review. Usually I do this reveal, but the guy is so big and powerful, he doesn't need a reveal. Just looking at this figure is stunning enough. So here it is, the Apocalypse. It's not just any Apocalypse, Apocalypse 2nd edition. Released in 1993 through Toy Biz, this figure is possibly the most definitive version of that character at that time. I'm sure, you know, the Marvel Legends build Apocalypse figures far superior in many ways, but I collect mostly vintage stuff, so therefore, this is my definitive version. Until you get to the Gimmick, and then of course he loses points. We'll get to that in due time. Now, this was one of the many action figures that I never really did have as a kid. I really wanted Apocalypse. I did get an Apocalypse, but it was the Apocalypse 1st edition. If anyone can remember that one, he extended through his legs and looked like spiddly little rod irons in there. Didn't look very impressive at all. And you could also extend his waist, which looked a little bit more realistic, I guess you could say. And he came with a little staff with a little jewel or laser or something on it. Anyway, getting back to this guy. Saw him once in a KB toy store, the now defunct KB Toys. And I gotta tell you, I wanted him, but it was like one of those window shopping trips where your mom just takes you to the mall, takes you inside the KB Toys, and is like, you can look, but you can't buy anything. It's like, what a tease. So anyway, came back empty-handed. But I wanted Apocalypse so much, so it was like Easter on my birthday or something like that. I remember putting on my list that I wanted Apocalypse. I mean, seriously, I wanted Apocalypse. But I didn't specify. I should have said Apocalypse 2 or Apocalypse 2nd edition. I figured maybe my parents would have just realized that I wanted the big one and not the skinny anorexic one. This did not come to be, and I got Apocalypse 1st edition. Sad. Had another chance to get one too, went to KB Toys again. Saw him, didn't pick him up because mom was like, well, you can have this figure or you can have the same figure that you already have. It was like Cyclops or Wolverine or something like that, so I got that one instead. I did have friends that had Apocalypse, and I tell you, it was a real fun toy, especially with his little gimmick. Interchangeable, transforming weapon arms, because obviously Apocalypse was a shapeshifter. This one is his jab action, push and then pull back with this little lever. Save your dirty jokes for yourself. And the real working pincer, or claw as a lot of people just like to call it, actually really worked. It was like a little spring. This one gets a little loose after a while. It's not really secured right. But this one, woo! Of course, the only thing you can really grab is maybe a leg or an arm. The detailing on these are really nice though. Almost mechanical and like. Except when you get to the jabber. There's just no detail here. Would have been nice if, like in the card art, I'll show you, it had that little triangle with the little cylinder, but of course we didn't get that. But now, back to Apocalypse. He does have the usual amount of articulation for an action figure. His head swivels, his arms swivel at the shoulder joints, the hip joints swivel, and of course the, did I say swivel? Yeah, I guess it does swivel. No, it doesn't swivel. They do 360, let's just say that, and his legs can do 180 or a 90. I'm not really good with articulation. If it's not swiveling, let's just say they rotate. And then his knees bend. That's pretty much his articulation. Oh, another thing, his accessories, he does have the little tubes that attach to holes here, 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 and here. A nice little thing about, if you notice that the little holes here, but we'll get in that later. Well, that's not really a hole. Yeah. So, like I said, my friends had this little Apocalypse figure, and I used to play with it constantly. You know, you bring your action figures to your friend's house, and the ones that he didn't already have, and he had little wars. So, but it wouldn't be much longer until I was much later until I was an adult when I finally obtained this guy. As you can see, why the bubble is neatly cut away, and it still has the card taped to the backing. So, let's see Apocalypse in action. I've already talked about him way too much, and I'm pretty sure you're just really just tired of just staring at him. Looking at his face sculpt, he has a very, very menacing face sculpt. Very, very Egyptian-like in his origins. As you may already not know, he is the very first mutant. And he preferred for people to think of him as a god because of his power and his longevity. I love the little wrist gauntlets. They really serve no purpose, but it's just a really cool design. Guess you could call it like a guard. Little knuckles. The boots, very typical boots of the 70s, brought back for the 1990s for his look. And of course, he's just overtly muscular, much like in his 1990s comic appearances. And of course, because every comic character had a brand, his has a giant A right on his torso. And that's Apocalypse. Do a little 360 so you can see the pectoral muscles and his back, and the nice thing about this is when you move his arms up, the tubes are, well, they kind of come out very easily, but that's an easy fix. You just take the tube and you plug it back into his arm. And there we go, all fixed. Now, for his gimmick. And of course, he has a very fun gimmick if you're a child, and kind of a hit and miss if you're an adult collector. What you want to do is you want to take his arms off. So, unplug the tubes, and what you do is I pull up and out, and I'll show you why. As you can see here, he's got a clip here, but it's not like just a regular old peg, it's an actual clamp. And after a while, these clamps would get very, very brittle and break. So you can't just like yank them off, because then you're damaging or breaking them. So I kind of lift them up to kind of push the clips together and then pull out. Now it just looks disgusting. He's got no arms. In fact, if you went to a yard sale, this is probably what when you'd see Apocalypse, is probably what you would find. Him with no arms. Or maybe like one arm here, and maybe a weapon arm there, or one weapon arm and another arm, so you can't even put Apocalypse together again. You'd have like one arm here and then one arm here, and it just wouldn't look right. But now I'm rambling. Then you put his claw arm here, and you can put the jabbing pincer right here. Now, I'm a fan of the claw arm. The claw arm I can see an absolute purpose to. But this one, a lot of people just thought of it as like a little laser blaster. I never really liked it much. And remember when I said with these little holes? If you haven't guessed already, yes, they are for the tubes. And there we have it. Like I said, I really don't like the look and presentation of the weapon arms. The weapon arms are just a little too dorky. The claw arm works great, but this arm right here, there's only really one way to pose it to really look effective, and that would be like this. But even then, it still looks like he's got limited jerky movement, and I don't know, I just don't like it. So if I ever displayed him with the weapon arm, I would just display him with just the claw arm and one regular arm. But even then, that does look a little dorky, unless you got the weapon arm straight up, as opposed to the side. Arm like this, waist. Now I look kind of like in a really cool, threatening, dynamic pose. Woo. Another thing that I never remembered as a kid, and it's not anywhere on the back of the card on how to work the special features, is this. If you notice, he has like a little click, much like the strike twist figures, and in fact it does have a little striking motion when you move him by the waist. Kind of like a mechanical sound. Much like the Wolverine figures and the Sauron figures and whatever figures came with that little thumb wheel that you can rotate at the waist. Swivel at the waist. So that was pretty cool. It's kind of like a little extra hidden feature for Apocalypse, because after all, Apocalypse was pretty much a mysterious character up until Rise of the Apocalypse and Ages of the Apocalypse. He was pretty much a mysterious character. And of course, his biggest claim to fame was the construction of Archangel and the infecting Nathan Summers, Cyclops' son, with the techno-organic virus that turned him into Cable. Before I start rambling on too much about Apocalypse, let's just say that he's a wonderful figure. I only take points off for the weapon arms. Well, the jabber, at least. This one was pretty cool. And I really hope that if you collect vintage action figures of X-Men, that you would definitely pick this one up in your collection. It is definitely a must-have. So until then, this is Trans8010. Man, that is just beastly. So this is Trans8010 saying sayonara.